that I would marry no man except one who knew no fear. Sigurd said, "Teach me some wisdom in important matters." She said, "You know better, but I will teach you gratefully if there is anything I know that may please you about runes or any other sort of thing. Let us drink together, and may the gods give us a good day, and grant that you find something useful and wise in my knowledge, and that you'll remember what you and I say." Brynhild filled a cup and gave it to Sigurd, and then she said, "I bring you beer, warrior, blended with strength and fame. It's full of spells and magic, good enchantments, and happy words. You should carve victory runes if you want to have victory. Carve some on the hilt of your sword. Carve some on the middle of the blade also, some elsewhere on the sword, and name Tyr twice. You should make wave runes if you want to save ships out on the wild water. You should carve them on the ship's bow and on the steering rudder and burn them into the oars. Then there won't be any steep wave, there won't be any blue waves that you won't escape from safely. You should learn speech runes to prevent those who hate you from taking vengeance on you. Wind them around, weave them around, set them all around at the court where people go for judgments. You should learn beer runes if you don't want another man's wife to abuse your trust if you have a tryst. Carve them on the drinking horn and on the back of your hand, and carve the rune for inn on your fingernail. You should bless the drinking horn, then watch out for trouble and throw garlic in the drink. If you do this, I know you'll never drink mead that's blended with a curse. You should learn life-saving runes if you want to save a woman's life when she is in the throes of childbirth. Carve them on your palm and clasp them around your limbs and pray to your family spirits for help. You should learn limb runes if you want to be a healer and learn how to heal wounds. Carve them on bark. Carve them on the needles of a pine that bends eastward. You should learn mind runes if you want to be wiser than any other man. Odin read them. Odin carved them. Odin thought them up. Runes were carved on the shield that stood before the shining sun, on the ears and hooves of the horses that draw the sun, on the wheel of the chariot of Thor, on the reins of Sleipnir, on the reins of his sled. They were carved on a bear's paw and a poet's tongue, on a wolf's claws and an eagle's beak, on bloody wings and a bridge's beams, on a helper's palm and a healer's footprint. They were carved on glass and gold, on treasures, in wine and in beer, and a witch's chair, in a man's flesh, and Odin's spear point, and a troll woman's breast, on a Norn's fingernail and the beak of an owl. All of them that were carved were then shaved off, and they were stirred into the holy mead and sent far away. Some are with the Aesir, some are with the elves, some are with the Vanir, and mortal men have some. The beech tree runes and life-saving runes, and all the beer runes, and the famous strength runes will be of good use for everyone who knows them completely and correctly. Use them if you know them, till the gods die. Now you must choose from the options you are offered, you lord of sharp weapons. Choose to speak, or choose to remain silent. Your fate is already decided. Sigurd responded, "I will never flee, even if you know I am doomed to die. I was not born a coward. I want to have all of your loving advice, as long as I live." Chapter 21, Concerning the Council of Brynhild. Compare Sigurd Rivamal, stanzas 21 to 37, in the Poetic Edda. Sigurd said, "There has never been a wiser woman in all the world. Teach me more wisdom." She said, "It's fitting that I do as you say, and give you more good advice, both because you ask for it, and because you are yourself wise." She continued, "Behave faultlessly with your kin. Don't avenge yourself on them, and bear their evils patiently, and you'll live a long life and a reward. Beware of evil things, either the love of a girl or another man's wife. Bad things often come from them. Don't be seen with fools when you're in public. They often say worse things than they realize, and then you'll be called a coward, and others will think that their slander is true. Wait for another day to kill the fool, and then repay him for his lie. If you go where evil spirits live, be careful. Don't sleep near the road, even if darkness is setting on you outside, because there are often evil spirits who dull men's minds living there. Don't let pretty women tempt you, even if you're at a party, because they'll keep you from sleeping, or else they'll make you miserable. And don't try to seduce them with kisses or with pretty words. If you hear drunk men saying something stupid, don't talk to them. They're drunk and their wits are gone. Such conversations will often cause sorrow or death. Fight your enemies right away. Never wait for them to burn you inside your own home. Never swear a false oath. Grim vengeance comes to oath breakers. Respect a dead body, whether the death was from sickness, or drowning at sea, or from violence. Prepare the body carefully. You should never believe someone if you have killed his father, or his brother, or any other close relative of his, even if he is a young man. There's often a wolf that lurks in a dead man's young son. Beware of being deceived by your own friends. And I cannot see much of your future, if I am wrong in saying you can expect to be hated by your brothers-in-law. Sigurd said, I think there is no one wiser than you. I swear I will marry you, and you're a good match for me. She said, I would choose you even if I could choose from all men. And they sealed these words with oaths. Chapter 22. Description of Sigurd, killer of Volvnir. Now Sigurd rode away. He carried a shield in a convex shape, and it was plated with pure gold, with a design in the shape of a dragon set into it. The shield was charred, dark brown on top, but painted bright red at the bottom. And his helmet, saddle, and leather jacket were colored the same way. He wore a golden shirt of chainmail, and all his weapons were trimmed with gold, and on all his weapons was the design of a dragon, so that everyone who saw him, who had heard the story, would know that it was he who had killed the mighty dragon called Volvnir by the Norse. And all of his weapons were trimmed in gold, and colored chestnut brown, because he was far above all other men in noble birth and courtly manners, and in almost every other way. And when all the greatest champions and the most outstanding chieftains are counted, he will always be counted first, and his name is famous in all the languages spoken north of the Mediterranean, and it will be, so long as the world lasts. Sigurd had chestnut-colored hair that flowed in beautiful long locks. He had a well-trimmed, thick beard of the same color. He had a high nose, a broad, big-boned face, and his eyes were so bright that there were few men who dared to look under his brow. He was so broad across the shoulders that it was like looking at two men. Every part of his body was big and tall and as good-looking as it could be. And it is a sign of his great height that when he carried a sword Grom in the scabbard at his belt, and the sword was 3.5 feet long, if he happened to walk in a field of full-grown rye, then the bottom point of his scabbard would touch the top of the plants. And Sigurd's strength was even greater than his size would suggest. He knew how to fight with a sword, and how to throw a long or short spear, and how to hold a shield, how to shoot an arrow and ride a horse, and he learned many other noble arts in his youth. He was a wise man who could see the future before it happened, and he understood the language of birds, and because of talents like these, there were few events that caught him by surprise. He could give a good long speech, and he was so clever with words that he could not begin to speak for some cause without convincing everyone who heard him, before he had finished, that there was no other way to see the matter. And his joy was in giving help to his men, and in testing himself in great deeds, and in taking treasure from his enemies and giving it in turn to his friends. He had no lack of courage, and he was never afraid. Chapter 23. Sigurd stays with Heimir. Sigurd now rode until he came to a large town, which was ruled by the great chieftain named Heimir. Heimir was married to Brynhild's sister, who was named Beckhild. She was named Beckhild, Hild of the Bench, because she stayed at home and learned women's arts, while her sister was named Brynhild, Hild of the Armor, because she went out to battle in helmet and armor. Heimir and Beckhild had a son named Alsvith, the noblest of men. Some men were playing outside, and when they saw the man riding into town, they stopped their game and marveled at the man, because they had never seen his like. They went and greeted him well. Alsvith invited Sigurd to stay with him and to be served whatever he wanted, which Sigurd accepted. Everything was arranged so that Sigurd was served in magnificent fashion. 4 men took the gold from his horse Grani, and another was assigned to take good care of Grani. They could see many precious and rare treasures among the gold. They entertained themselves looking at the helmets and suits of chainmail, and the big rings, and the wonderfully large golden cups, and the weapons of every kind. Sigurd stayed there a long time in great honor. His famous deed of killing the horrible dragon had now become famous in every land. These noblemen enjoyed themselves well, and they were loyal to one another. They enjoyed themselves by preparing their weapons and making arrows, and hunting with their hawks. Chapter 24. Sigurd meets Brynhild. At this time, Brynhild, Hamir's foster daughter, came home. She sat in a room with her serving women, and she was more skillful with her hands than other women. She made a tapestry of gold and sewed it into scenes that depicted all of Sigurd's great deeds, the killing of Fafnir, and the winning of the treasure and the death of Regin. It is told that one day Sigurd rode to the forest with his dogs and hawks and a large entourage. And when he came home, his hawk flew up high on a tall tower and sat beside a window there. Sigurd followed the hawk, and he looked through the window and saw that it was Brynhild within. Her tapestry impressed him as much as her beauty. When he entered the hall, he had no interest in entertaining himself with the others there. Osfrid said, "Why are you so quiet? This mood saddens me and your friends. Why can't you be happy? Even your hawks are sullen, and so is Grani, and we can hardly do anything to change it." Sigurd said, "My good friend, listen to what I'm thinking. My hawk flew up on a high tower, and when I retrieved him, I saw a beautiful woman. She was sitting by a golden tapestry. I looked at it and saw my own past and future accomplishments." Osfrid said, "You have seen Brynhild, daughter of Boothly, who is the most talented of women." Sigurd said, "That must be true. How long has she been here?" Osfrid said, "She came at about the same time you did." Sigurd said, "I know that was a few days ago. This woman seems better to me than any other woman in the world." Osfrid said, "Don't dwell on one woman, such a man as you are. It's bad to brood over what you can't have." "I'm going to meet her," said Sigurd. "I'll bring her gold, and she will give me joy and return my feelings." Osfrid said, "In her whole life, there has never been a man she would sit next to or give a drink to. She wants to be a warrior and do famous deeds." Sigurd said, "I don't know whether she'll answer me or not, or whether she'll let me sit next to her." And the next day after, Sigurd went to Brynhild's room. Osfrid stood outside the room and made shafts for his arrows. Sigurd said, "Hello, my lady, how do you do?" She said, "I am well. My kinsmen and friends are alive. But there is a danger in the fate that every man carries until his death day." He sat next to her. 4 women came in with large golden cups full of the finest wine and stood before them. Brynhild said, "Few men, with the exception of my father, have been allowed to sit there." He said, "It pleases me that this one is now allowed to." The room was draped with the most expensive tapestries, and the whole floor was carpeted. Sigurd said, "Now it has happened as you promised me." She said, "Be welcome here." Then she stood up with her 4 serving women, and she went to him with a golden cup and asked him to drink. He stretched out his hand for the cup and took her hand in his and sat her down next to him. He embraced her neck and kissed her and said, "No woman more beautiful than you was ever born." Brynhild said, "It is not wise to place your trust in a woman, because women always break their oaths." He said, "The best day in my life would be the day I had you." Brynhild said, "It is not our fate to live together. I am a shield maiden, and it is my place to wear a helmet among war kings and assist them in their campaigns, and I am not afraid to fight." Sigurd said, "We would be happiest if we lived together, and the pain of what you're telling me is harder to endure than sharp blades." Brynhild said, "I will summon armies to battle, and you will marry Gudrun, the daughter of Giuki." Sigurd said, "No other princess tempts me, and I don't have any second thoughts about this. I swear before the gods that I will have you, or no woman otherwise." She said likewise. Sigurd thanked her for this and gave her a golden ring, and they swore these oaths again, and he went away to join his men, and he stayed there for a time, and his joy was great. Chapter 25. Gudrun and Brynhild talk. A king was named Giuki, who ruled south of the Rhine. He had 3 sons named Gunnar, Hogni, and Gutor, and a daughter named Gudrun, who was the most famous of women. All of his children were better than the children of other kings in every accomplishment, and in both beauty and size. His sons were always in battle, and they won many famous victories. Giuki's wife was the witch Grimhild. A king was named Boothly, who was more powerful than Giuki, although both were mighty kings. Boothly was the father of Brynhild and her brother Atli. Atli was the cruelest of men, big and black-haired, and yet honorable and a great warrior. Grimhild was a cruel-minded woman. The rule of Giuki and his sons was joyful, and mostly because of his children, who were so much better than everyone else. One time Gudrun said to her serving women that she was unhappy. One of them asked her what caused her unhappiness. She said, "I had an unhappy dream, and now my heart is miserable. Interpret this dream that I will tell you." The serving woman said, "Tell me and don't be sad, because people always have dreams before storms come." Gudrun said, "This is no storm. I dreamed that there was a beautiful hawk on my arm, with feathers made of gold." The woman answered, "Many men have heard of your beauty, wisdom, and noble birth. Some king's son is going to come ask for your hand in marriage." Gudrun said, "Nothing seemed better to me than this hawk, and I knew I would rather lose everything I owned than lose him." The woman answered, "The man you marry will have noble manners, and you will love him well." Gudrun said, "I'm upset that I don't know who he is, and I'm going to go meet with Brynhild. She will know." Gudrun dressed herself in gold and beautiful clothing, and traveled with her servant women until they came to Brynhild's hall, which was decked with gold and stood on a high hill. And when people saw them coming, they told Brynhild that several women were coming in gilded wagons. "It must be Gudrun, daughter of Giuki," said Brynhild. "I dreamed about her last night. Let's go out and greet her. No women more beautiful are going to come visit me." Brynhild and her serving women went out and greeted Gudrun and her servants well. Then all of them went inside Brynhild's stately hall, which was richly decorated inside, and on the outside it was covered with a great deal of silver. Carpets were spread beneath their feet, and they were served well and played many kinds of games, but Gudrun was quiet. Brynhild said, "Why can't you enjoy yourself? Don't be like this. Let's all enjoy ourselves together and talk about mighty kings and their great deeds." "Let's do that," said Gudrun. "Who do you think has been the foremost of all kings?" Brynhild said, "Haki and Hogbarth, sons of Holmund. They have done many famous deeds in battle." Gudrun said, "They were great and famous, though Sigar abducted their sister and burned other members of their family in their houses, and the brothers have been slow to take vengeance. Why don't you mention my brothers, whom many now consider to be the greatest of men?" Brynhild said, "They come from a good family, but they haven't been tested much yet, and I know someone who is even better, Sigurd Sigmund's son. He was still only a child when he killed the sons of King Hunding, and avenged both his father as well as his mother's father Oilimi." Gudrun said, "What is the story behind that? Are you saying that he was born when his father died?" Brynhild said, "His mother went among the fallen after the battle, and found King Sigmund wounded. She offered to treat his wounds, but he said he was too old to fight any longer, and he told her to comfort herself with the knowledge that she was going to give birth to the noblest of sons, and this was a true prophecy and a wise guess. And after King Sigmund died, she went with King Olv, and Sigurd was raised there in great honor, and he did many great things every day, and he is the greatest man in the world." Gudrun said, "You speak of him in love, but I came here to tell you my dreams, which have made me very miserable." Brynhild said, "Don't be troubled by dreams. Spend your time with your family, who will make you cheerful." "I dreamed," said Gudrun, "that I left my room with many other women, and we saw a huge stag, much larger than other animals. His hair was made of gold. We all wanted to catch him, but only I managed to, and that stag seemed better to me than anything else could be. And then you shot that deer right in front of me where I knelt. This was such a terrible grief to me that I could hardly bear it. And then you gave me a wolf pup, and it splattered me with the blood of my brothers." Brynhild said, "I will tell you what is going to happen. Sigurd will come to you, the one I have chosen for my husband, and your mother Grimhild will give him a drink of cursed mead that will cause us all a great conflict. You will be married to Sigurd, and then lose him shortly thereafter, and then you will be married to King Atli. Then you will lose your brothers, and then you will kill King Atli." Gudrun said, "It makes me overwhelmingly sad to know these things. and then she and her serving women went home to King Giuki. Chapter 26. The Marriage of Sigurd and Gudrun. Now Sigurd rode away with this great treasure, riding Grani with all his weapons of war and his other goods, and he parted with Alsvid in friendship. Sigurd rode on until he came to the hall of King Giuki. He rode into town and was seen there by one of the king's men, who said, "I think it's one of the gods who goes there. This man is covered all over with gold. His horse is much larger than other horses, and his weapons are amazingly beautiful. He is much more impressive than other men. This is the greatest of men himself." King Giuki went out with his guards and greeted his visitor and asked, "Who are you riding into our town? Something no one would dare attempt except with the permission of my sons." He answered, "I am Sigurd, the son of King Sigmund." King Giuki said, "You are most welcome, and you are welcome to anything you might want here." Sigurd went into the hall, and everyone there seemed short next to him. All of them served him food and drink, and he stayed there in great honor. Sigurd rode together later with Gunnar and Hogni, Giuki's sons. And though Sigurd exceeded them in all his accomplishments, they were all great men. Grimhild noticed how much Sigurd loved Brynhild, and how often he spoke of her, and she thought it would be better luck if he stayed with them and married her daughter Gudrun, since she saw that no one was Sigurd's equal, and she knew what a strong support he would be, and that he had an incredible amount of wealth, far more than anyone had seen before. The king already treated him like another son, and the sons for their part gave him more honor than they gave themselves. One evening, when they sat and drank, Queen Grimhild stood up and went to Sigurd and greeted him and said, "Your presence here makes us joyful, and we wish to give you every kind of good thing. Take this horn and drink." He accepted the horn and drank its contents completely. Then she said, "King Giuki will be your father, and I will be your mother, and Gunnar and Hogni will be your brothers when you swear oaths on this, and no one equal to the three of you will be found anywhere." Sigurd took this gladly, and after he had drunk from the horn, he forgot Brynhild. Sigurd stayed there for some time, and one time Grimhild went to King Giuki and placed her arms around his neck and said, "We have the greatest champion there ever will be in the world with us now. He would be a great ally to us. Marry him to your daughter, and give him a great treasure and whatever part of our realm he wants, and he will find joy living here." The king said, "It is not often that a man offers his own daughters in marriage, but it is a greater honor to offer her to Sigurd than to have her courted by other men." And one evening, when Gudrun served the drinks, Sigurd could see that she was a beautiful woman, and in every respect the most noble. Sigurd stayed there for 2.5 years with honor and friendship, and one day the king and his family spoke with Sigurd. King Giuki said, "You have done me a great deal of good, Sigurd, and you have done much to strengthen my realm." Gunnar said, "I would do anything to see you stay here a long time, and would offer you both the kingdom and my sister, a prize no one else would get if he asked for her." Sigurd said, "I am grateful for these honors, and I accept." And Sigurd, Gunnar, and Hogni swore an oath of blood brotherhood, to act as if they were brothers by the same father. And a great feast was prepared that lasted for many days, and Sigurd was married to Gudrun. There were all kinds of joys and entertainments, and each day the service was even better than the last. Sigurd, Gunnar, and Hogni traveled widely in many lands and did many great deeds, killing the sons of many kings. No one accomplished such great things as they did, and they returned home with huge quantities of loot. Sigurd gave Gudrun some of Fafnir's heart to eat, and this made her both crueler and wiser than she had been before. They had a son named Sigmund. And one time Grimhild went to her son Gunnar and said, "You have great joy in ruling, except for one thing that you lack, which is a wife. Go and woo Brynhild. She would be a noble match, and Sigurd would ride with you." Gunnar said, "She is certainly beautiful, and I am not reluctant to take this advice." He told this to his father and brothers and to Sigurd, and they were all eager to see it done. Chapter 27. Sigurd rides through the Ring of Fire. They prepared their journey carefully, and then rode over the mountains and valleys to King Boothly, where Gunnar made his proposal. Boothly said he would be in favor of the marriage, if Brynhild were not against it, because he said she was so proud that she would only be married to a man she wanted. They rode now to Hlimdalr, and they were greeted well there by Hamir. Gunnar told him his errand, and Hamir said it would be Brynhild's choice about whether she would marry him or not. He added that her hall was not very far from his, and that she would only willingly marry a man who dared to ride through the burning ring of fire that rose in flames around her hall. They found the hall and the fire around it, and they saw that the hall was roofed with gold and surrounded on all sides by fire. Gunnar was riding the horse Koti, and Hogni rode Holkvir. Gunnar rode toward the fire, but his horse balked. Sigurd said, "Why do you balk, Gunnar?" Gunnar said, "My horse won't leap over the fire." And then he asked if Sigurd would loan him Grani to ride. "Of course," said Sigurd, and now Gunnar rode a second time at the flame, but Grani would not make the leap. And since Gunnar could not make his way through the fire, he exchanged appearances with Sigurd, as Grimhild had taught them to do. Then Sigurd rode Grani with the sword Grom in his hand and golden spurs on his feet. Grani leapt the flame when he felt the spurs. There was a great roar as the fire surged, and the earth around them shook and the flames reached to the heavens. No one had dared to do this before, and it seemed as though he rode into darkness. Then the fire died down and he stepped off his horse into the hall. As the poem tells it, the fire surged, the earth shook, and the high flames sawed at the heavens. Not many kings were willing to ride that fire, nor step over it. Sigurd drove Grani with a drawn sword, and the flames withdrew before him. The fire withered for that man eager for honor. Grani's harness, which once had been Regin's, glowed. And when Sigurd entered the flame, he found a lovely room and Brynhild sitting within. She asked who this man was, and he answered that he was Gunnar, the son of Gjuki. "And you are going to be my wife, with the consent of your father and your foster father, provided you also agree, now that I have ridden through the burning ring of fire." "I don't know how I'm going to answer this," she said. Sigurd stood tall and leaned on his sword hilt and said to Brynhild, "I will reward you with a great deal of gold and good treasures." She answered with sadness, sitting in her seat like a swan on a wave, dressed in chainmail with a sword in her hand and a helmet on her head. "Gunnar," she said, "do not talk to me like this unless you are better than all other men, and will agree to kill every other man who has ever asked to marry me, if you can be relied upon to do that. I have been in battle with the king of the Rus, and my weapons were red with blood, and I still long for such things." He said, "You have done many great deeds, but now remember your oath that you would marry the man who rode over this flame." She knew that this was a true reply, and she realized the importance of what he had said. She stood up and greeted him well, and he stayed there for 3 nights, sharing one bed with her, though he took the sword Grom and drew it from its sheath and placed it between them. She asked why he did this, and he answered that it had been foretold that this was how he would be married to his wife, or else he would die. Then he took the ring Anvaran out, which he had given her earlier, off her finger and gave her a new ring from Fafnir's treasure. Then he rode out through the same fire back to his companions, and he and Gunnar exchanged appearances again, and then they rode back to Hrimdalr and told what had happened. That same day, Brynhild went home to her foster father Hamir and told him privately that a great king had come to her. He rode through my burning ring of fire, and he said he had come to propose to me and that his name was Gunnar. And I said that Sigurd alone would do this, and that I swore oaths to him on the mountain, and he was my first lover. But Hamir said that everything would be done as agreed. Brynhild said, "Aslaug, my daughter with Sigurd, will grow up here with you." And now Brynhild went to her father, and Sigurd and Gunnar rode home. Grimhild greeted them well and thanked Sigurd for the service he had done. A feast was prepared and a huge crowd attended. Then King Boothli came with his daughter Brynhild and his son Atli, and the feast lasted several days. And when the feast came to an end, Sigurd remembered all his oaths to Brynhild, but he said nothing. Brynhild and Gunnar sat and were entertained and drank good wine. Chapter 28. A conversation between Gudrun and Brynhild. One day, when the women went to the Rhine to bathe, Brynhild waited further upstream from Gudrun. Gudrun asked why she acted this way. Brynhild said, "Why would I act like your equal in this or anything else? I think that my father is more powerful than yours, and my husband has done many magnificent things, and he rode through the burning ring of fire, while your husband was the slave of King Belfreg." Gudrun answered angrily, "You would be wiser to keep your mouth shut than to mock my husband. Everyone says that no better man in any respect has ever come into the world, and it's not proper for you to mock him when he was your first lover, and it was he who killed Fafnir, and who rode through your fire when you thought it was King Gunnar. And he lay in bed next to you and took the ring Anvaran out from your finger, and here it is for you to see." Brynhild saw the ring and recognized it. and turned as pale as if she had died. Then she went home and said nothing the whole evening. When Sigurd came to bed, Gudrun asked, "Why is Brynhild so unhappy?" Sigurd said, "I do not know for sure, but I suspect that we will soon know very clearly why." Gudrun said, "Why can't she enjoy her wealth and happy company and the praise of everyone, when she married the man she wanted?" Sigurd said, "Where was she when she said she was married to the best man, or the one she most wanted?" Gudrun said, "I'll ask her in the morning what man she would most want to marry." Sigurd said, "I don't recommend you do that. You'll regret it if you do." But in the morning, Gudrun and Brynhild sat in her room, and Brynhild was silent. Gudrun said, "Be cheerful, Brynhild. Are you upset about what we said to each other? Or what keeps you from being happy?" Brynhild said, "Nothing but malice makes you ask that. You have a cruel heart." "Don't think that," said Gudrun. "Tell me." Brynhild said, "You should only ask questions that you'll be better knowing the answers to. That's proper for high-ranking women. And it's good to be happy about good things, when everything is going as you like." Gudrun said, "It's still too early to say if that's true, but there's something foresighted in what you say. What makes you angry at me? I did nothing to harm you." Brynhild said, "You must pay for being married to Sigurd. I don't accept that you have a right to enjoy him or his great treasure." Gudrun said, "I didn't know what you had said to him, and it was within my father's rights to arrange my marriage without your approval or presence." Brynhild said, "What Sigurd and I said to one another was no secret, nor were our sworn oaths. You all knew that you were deceiving me, and you will pay for it." Gudrun said, "You have a better husband than you deserve, but your jealousy will keep simmering, and many are going to pay for it." "I could be content," said Brynhild, "if only you weren't married to the better man." Gudrun said, "You have such a noble husband that I don't even know who a better king would be, and you have plenty of wealth and power." Brynhild said, "Sigurd killed Fafnir, and that is worth more than the whole kingdom of King Gunnar. Or as the poem has it, Sigurd killed the serpent, and that will not soon be forgotten by anyone while the world endures. But your brother dared neither to ride the fire, nor to cross it." Gudrun said, "Grani wouldn't cross the fire with Gunnar on his back, but Gunnar did dare to ride it, and there's no need to insult his courage." Brynhild said, "I won't conceal that I have no love for Grimhild." Gudrun said, "Don't insult her. She treats you like her own daughter." Brynhild said, "She is the cause of all the evil that bites me. She gave the cursed beer to Sigurd so that he would forget even my name." Gudrun said, "You are saying many untruths true things, and that's a terrible lie. Brynhild said, "Then enjoy, Sigurd, as if you hadn't deceived me. Your marriage is a mismatch, and the future will go with you as I foresee it will." Gudrun said, "I'll enjoy him better than you wish, and no one thinks that Sigurd's too good for me, not in any way." Brynhild said, "You speak callously, and you'll regret the words running out of your mouth. Let's not curse each other." Gudrun said, "You spat all your curses out on me first, and now you act like you want to make it better, but there's evil intent underneath." "Let's stop this useless talk," said Brynhild. "I kept my mouth shut for a long time about the sorrow that lived in my heart, but I love only your brother. Let's talk about something else." Gudrun said, "Your thoughts are hatching plans a long way in the future." Terrible grief came from when these two women went to the river, and Brynhild recognized Gudrun's ring, and from the conversation that ensued. Chapter 29, concerning Brynhild's agony. After this talk, Brynhild stayed in bed, and news came to King Gunnar that she was sick. He went to her and asked what was wrong, but she didn't answer, and she lay as if she were dead. When he pressed her, she said, "What did you do with the ring I gave you, the one my father King Boothly gave me the last time I saw him, when you and Gyuki came to him and promised to raid and burn unless he married me to you? Afterwards he came to talk to me and asked which man I would choose out of the ones who would come. And I said I would rather lead a third of the army and fight. I had two choices then, either to be married as he wanted, or to be without money and my father's goodwill, and my father said that his goodwill would be better for me than his anger. Then I thought about whether I ought to obey him or kill many men. But I thought it was unlikely that I could defeat him, so I promised myself to the man who rode the horse Grani and had Fafnir's treasure, the one who had ridden through my burning ring of fire, and killed the men I asked him to. And no one had the courage to ride that fire except Sigurd alone. He rode the fire. He didn't like the courage to do that. He killed the dragon, and Regan, and 5 kings. Not you, Gunnar. You turned pale like a corpse, and you're no king and no champion. And I swore an oath when I was at home with my father, that I would love only the best man ever born, and that is Sigurd. And now I am an oath breaker because I'm not married to him, and for that I will cause your death. And I have evil to repay to Grimhild as well. There is no woman worse or more cowardly than she is." Gunnar answered so that few could overhear, "You've said enough slander, and you're an evil woman for insulting a lady who's higher ranked than you are, a woman who doesn't resent her lot in life like you do, or torment dead men or murder anyone, and she lives with praise." Brynhild said, "I have done nothing secret and nothing wrong. My nature is otherwise. I would rather kill you." Then she tried to kill King Gunnar, but Hogni restrained her and put her in chains. Gunnar said, "I don't want her to live in chains." She said, "Don't worry about that. You'll never see me being cheerful in your hall again, nor playing games, nor speaking happily, nor working good tapestries with gold, nor dispensing good advice." And she said that her greatest grief was that she was not married to Sigurd. She stood up and struck her tapestry so that it broke apart, and then she ordered the doors to her room opened so that her miserable wailing could be heard a long way away. Her awful grieving could soon be heard all over town. Gudrun asked her serving women why they were so uncheerful and sad. "What is wrong with you? Why do you walk around like crazy people? What panic has come over you?" Then one of them, a girl named Svaverloth, said, "It is an unlucky day, and our whole hall is filled with grief." Gudrun said to her, "Stand up. We've slept long enough, and wake up Brynhild. Let's go back to our weaving and be cheerful." "I can't do it," said Svaverloth. "I can't wake her up or even speak to her. She's drunk neither mead nor wine for many days. I think she's angered the gods." And then Gudrun said to Gunnar, "Go and get Brynhild, and tell her I feel pity for her in her grief." Gunnar said, "She has forbidden me from talking to her, or from touching her property." But then Gunnar went to see her and tried in many ways to get her to speak, without getting any response. He then went and found Hogni and asked him to see Brynhild. Hogni said he was not eager to do so, but he went, and he also got no answer from her. Then they met Sigurd and asked him to talk to her. He said nothing, and it stayed this way through the evening. The day after, when Sigurd came home from hunting, he went to Gudrun and said, "I have a bad feeling that this grief is going to turn into something bigger, and that Brynhild is going to die." Gudrun said, "My lord, many strange things happen where she is concerned, and she slept for 7 days and no one has dared to wake her up." Sigurd said, "She isn't sleeping, She is preparing plots against us." Then Gudrun wept and said, "It's a terrible feeling for me to know who your killer will be, Sigurd. But go and meet her and see if her pride is still swelling. Give her gold and see if that softens her anger." Sigurd went out and found the door to Brynhild's room open. He thought she was sleeping, and he tore the sheets off her and said, "Wake up, Brynhild. The sun is shining in town and you've slept enough. Stop this gloominess and be cheerful." Brynhild said, "What makes you so bold as to come see me? No one betrayed me worse than you did." Sigurd said, "Why won't you speak to anyone? What's wrong with you?" Brynhild said, "I will tell you the cause of my anger." Sigurd said, "You've had your wits enchanted away if you think that I mean you harm, and you're married to the man you chose." "No," she said, "it wasn't Gunnar who rode through the fire to me, and it wasn't Gunnar who came to me with a wedding gift of slaughtered enemies. I was perplexed by the man who came to my hall. I thought he had your eyes, but I could not see the truth because of the curse on my luck." Sigurd said, "I am no better man than the sons of King Yuki. It was they who killed the king of the Danes and King Boothly's brother, a great chieftain." Brynhild said, "I have so much evil to repay to them. Don't remind me of my sorrows. It was you, Sigurd, who killed the dragon and rode over the fire for my sake, and there were no sons of King Yuki there." Sigurd said, "I never became your husband, nor were you my wife, and a good king bought the right to call you his bride." Brynhild said, "The sight of Gunnar has never made my heart smile. I hate him, though I hide it for others' sake." "It's monstrous not to love a king like him," said Sigurd. "What is it that bothers you the most? I would think his love would seem better to you than gold." Brynhild said, "The worst of my miseries is that I can't think of a way to redden a bitter, sharp sword in your blood." Sigurd said, "Don't worry about that. It won't be long before some bitter sword does pierce my heart, and you won't have anything else to expect for yourself, because you won't survive longer than I do, and I don't have many days left to live." Brynhild said, "You talk like that because you hate me, and not just a little bit. But then you've cheated me out of all joy, and I care nothing for life anymore." Sigurd said, "Live and love King Gunnar and me. I'll give you everything I own, if it will keep you from choosing death." Brynhild said, "You hardly know my nature. You are better than all other men, and yet no woman seems more loathsome to you than I am." Sigurd said, "It would be truer to say that I love you more than I love myself. But I was tricked too, and now that can't be changed, even though I regretted that you weren't my wife when I regained my memory. But I put up with what I had to when I was in this royal hall, and I was happy in spite of everything because we were all together. It may also be that things will go as the prophecies told, and if so, I will not be worried." Brynhild said, "You're telling me too late that you regret my misery. Now there is no repayment I will accept." Sigurd said, "I wish that we could go into the same bed, and you could be my wife." Brynhild said, "Don't talk like that. I won't have two husbands under one roof, and I would rather die than betray King Gunnar." But then she remembered when she and Sigurd had met on the mountain, and the oaths they had sworn, and she said, "Now it's all ruined, and I don't want to live." "I didn't remember your name," said Sigurd, "and I didn't recognize you until you had already been married to him, and that is my greatest misery." Brynhild said, "I swore an oath to marry the man who would ride through my burning ring of fire, and I will either keep my oath or die otherwise." "I would rather leave Gudrun and marry you than see you die," said Sigurd, and then his chest swelled with so much agony that his chainmail burst. "I don't want you," said Brynhild, "and I don't want anyone else." And then Sigurd went away. As it says in the poem about Sigurd left after they talked, that resolute companion in battle. His head drooped and the sides of his chainmail shirt split open. And when Sigurd came back to the hall, Gunnar asked if Sigurd had found out what the problem was with Brynhild, or whether she was speaking again. Sigurd said she could speak. And now Gunnar went to her once again, and he asked what the point of all her unhappiness was, or if there might be some cure for it. "I don't want to live," said Brynhild, "because Sigurd betrayed me, and he betrayed you no less when you let him sleep in my bed. I will not have two husbands at one time under one roof, and this will be the death of Sigurd, or me or you, because he has told Gudrun everything, and she ridicules me." Chapter 30. The Murder of Sigurd. Compare Sigurðar Kvíða and Skama, stanzas 1 to 41 in the Poetic Edda. After this, Brynhild went outside and sat beneath the wall of her room and went over her misery again and again. She said that she hated everything, land and power alike, because she could not have Sigurd. Gunnar continued to come to her. Brynhild told him, "You will lose everything you rule, and everything you own, and you'll lose your life, and you'll lose me, and I will go home downcast to my own kinsmen and remain there, unless you kill Sigurd and his son. Don't raise his wolf pup." Gunnar became despondent and was uncertain what he should do, since he had sworn oaths to Sigurd. But he thought often about what an unparalleled shame it would be if his wife divorced him. Gunnar said, "I think Brynhild is better than all other women. She is the most famous of all women, and I would rather lose my own life than lose her love." He called then for his brother Hogni and said, "I am in a terrible dilemma." He then told Hogni how he wanted to kill Sigurd, and how he thought Sigurd had betrayed his trust. And we would have all his gold and the whole kingdom to ourselves, he added. But Hogni replied, "It would be shameful to break our oaths with violence. He has been a tremendous support to us, and there is no set of kings anywhere who can equal us as long as the Hunnish king Sigurd lives. We'll never again have such a man for our brother-in-law. I think it's a very good thing to have such a brother-in-law and his son for an ally. But I know what started this. It is Brynhild who made you think murderous thoughts, and her advice will lead us to terrible humiliation and harm." Gunnar said, "It will happen as I say, and I have a plan. Let's convince our brother Guttorm to do it. He is young and ignorant, and was too young to swear a pledge to Sigurd." Hogni said, "This is an evil plan in my opinion, and if we go through with it, we will pay a high price for betraying a man like him." But Gunnar said that Sigurd had to die, or else I will. He then told Brynhild to stand up and be cheerful. She stood, but she said Gunnar would not come into the same bed with her until the murder was done. Now the brothers made their plan. Gunnar said that Sigurd deserved death for being the man who had taken Brynhild's virginity, and let's convince Guttorm to kill him, he added. Gunnar and Hogni called Guttorm and offered him gold and vast lands if he would do it. They took a snake and some wolf flesh, and they cooked these and gave them to Guttorm to eat, as the poet says. They took snake meat and wolf meat and gave it to Guttorm, blended with beer and many other things in the enchanted drink. And once this was done with the witchery of Grimhild, Guttorm became wild and aggressive, and he swore to commit the murder, and his brothers vowed to give him great honor and reward. Sigurd was unaware of this treacherous plan and knew no reason why he deserved such evil treatment, but he could not fight what fate had in store for him. Guttorm went into Sigurd's room that morning and found him resting in his bed. But when he looked at him, he could not find the courage to attack him, and he ran back out. And then this happened a second time. Sigurd's eyes had such a serpent-like brightness that very few dared to look him in the eye. But when Guttorm came back in the third time, he found Sigurd asleep, and Guttorm drew his sword and stabbed him. The point of the sword pierced the mattress beneath him. Sigurd woke up when he was stabbed, and Guttorm started for the door. But Sigurd took up the sword Grom and threw it after him, and it struck him in the back and cut him in half at the waist. His hips and legs fell forward, and his head and arms fell backwards into the room. Gudrun was asleep in Sigurd's arms when she woke in dumbstruck terror, soaked in her husband's blood. Then she screamed, weeping and raving, and Sigurd lifted his head from the pillow and said, "Don't cry. Your brothers are still alive, and there is joy for you in that. And there is my young son, who cannot fight his enemies on his own, and they have done themselves harm with their actions. They won't find a better nephew or brother-in-law to ride with them in battle, if they let him grow up. And now it has happened as was long ago foretold, but I refuse to believe. No one can fight his fate. Brynhild is the cause of this, because she has more love for me than for anyone. But I swear truthfully that I never did any wrong to Gunnar, and I respected the oaths we swore, and I was never too much of a friend to his wife. And if I had known this before, and had I been able to stand on my feet armed with my weapons, many men would have lost their lives before I fell. Then all your brothers would be dead, and I would be harder for them to kill than the biggest buffalo or wild boar." Now King Sigurd died, and Gudrun screamed so that she lost her breath. Brynhild heard her and laughed when she heard that scream. Gunnar said to her, "You're not laughing like this because you're cheerful in the roots of your heart. Why have you turned pale? You're a murderous woman, and you're likely near your death. Nothing would be more fitting than to see your brother King Atle killed before your eyes, and you'll be the cause of that too. Now we have to see about the funeral of our brother-in-law, our brother's killer." Brynhild said, "No one thinks that the murders are over, but King Atle doesn't care about your threats or angry words. He will live longer than you, and he'll remain a more powerful man." Hogni said, "Now everything has happened as Brynhild said it would. This is an evil deed that will never be able to make right. Gudrun said, My brothers have killed my husband, and the next time you ride out to battle, you will find that Sigurd is not riding at your right hand, and you'll remember that he was your good luck, and he was your support. And if he had lived to have sons like him, you'd be the stronger for his children, kinsmen. No one could explain why Brynhild had laughed when she asked them to do it, and wept when it was done. Chapter 31. The Death of Brynhild. Compare Brot of Sigurðarkvíðu, stanzas 15 to 19. Sigurðarkvíða in Skama, stanzas 34 to 71. And Helreið Brynhildar in the Poetic Edda. Brynhild said, Gunnar, I dreamed that I slept in a cold bed, and you rode into the hands of your enemies. You and all the Niflungs will be cursed, you oathbreakers. You must have forgotten when you and Sigurd blended your blood in a pledge of brotherhood, and that it was your idea. Now you have repaid all his good with your evil. Sigurd, who let you be the foremost. When he came to woo me, I tested how faithfully he would keep his promises. He laid a sharp-edged sword between us, hardened with poison. It didn't take much to convince you and your brothers to do harm to him and me. I once lived at home with my father and had everything I wanted, and I wanted to marry none of you when you three kings came riding to our home. But my brother Atli asked me if I wanted to marry the man who sat on Grani's back. And that man did not resemble you in any way, and I promised myself to that son of King Sigmund and to no other. And your luck, Gunnar, won't improve, even if I die. Then Gunnar rose up, and he touched his wife's neck and begged her to live and accept money, and everyone else begged her to live too. But she drove away everyone who came to her, and said she would not be talked out of what she planned on doing. Gunnar went to Hogni and asked his advice, begging him to go to Brynhild and find out if anything could be done to soften her anger. Gunnar said there was great need, that her mind needed to be changed, and there wasn't much time to do it. But Hogni said, Let no one try to talk her out of killing herself. She's been no good to us or to anyone else since she came here. And now Brynhild ordered a huge amount of gold to be brought to her, and she invited everyone to come and take it who wanted any. Then she took a sword and put it through her own heart and sank down by her bed and said, Everyone who wants it, take some of the gold now. But they were all silent. And again she said, Take the gold as my gift and enjoy it. Then Brynhild spoke again to Gunnar. She said, Now let me talk to you for a little while about what is going to happen. You will make peace with Gudrun, with the assistance of Grimhild's magic. Gudrun will give birth to Sigurd's daughter, named Svanhild, and she will be the most beautiful woman ever born. Then Gudrun will be married unwillingly to my brother King Atli. Gunnar, you will want to marry my sister Oddrun, but Atli will forbid it. But the two of you will still meet in secret. She will love you, and Atli will betray you and he will put you inside a snake pit. And soon after, Atli and his sons will be killed at Gudrun's hands. Then the ocean's waves will take Gudrun to King Jonakr's castle, and she will give birth to his excellent sons. But then Svanhild will be married off to King Jormunrek. But Bikki's advice will be the cause of her death. And with that, your family will come to an end, and Gudrun's agony will be all the worse. Now, Gunnar, I make my last requests. Make a great funeral bonfire on the flat plain for all of us, for me and Sigurd and the men who were killed with Sigurd. Put a blood-reddened tent above it, and burn me on one side of that Hunnish king, and burn my men on the other side of him, 2 at his head and 2 at his feet, and burn 2 hawks. Then everything will be arranged properly. And between him and me, place Sigurd's drawn sword, just as it was the last time we shared a bed, when we pledged to become husband and wife. And it won't be as if the door was just shut on Sigurd's heels this way, if I followed him, and our funeral won't be remembered like some peasant's passing, if you kill 5 slave women, and the 8 slave men my father gave me to follow him, and burn them there along with the men who were killed with Sigurd. And I would say more if I weren't injured. My wound is bleeding and coming open, but I have spoken the truth. Now Sigurd's body was prepared in the ancient way, and a great funeral pyre was built. And when the fire had been kindled, they put Sigurd, the killer of Fafnir, on top of it with his 3-year-old son, killed on Brynhild's orders, and Guttorm. And when the fire was burning high, Brynhild spoke with her serving women, and told them to take the gold that she wanted to give them. And after this, Brynhild died and burned there with Sigurd, and their lives came to a close. Chapter 32. The Marriage of Gudrun to King Atli. Compare Gudrun Arkvida 2, stanzas 1 to 36 in the Poetic Edda. Now everyone who has heard this story agrees that there will never be another man like Sigurd in the world, that no one will ever be born again who could equal him at anything, and that his name will always be famous in the German language and in Scandinavia, as long as the world lasts. It is said that one day Gudrun sat in her room and said, "My life was better when I had Sigurd. He was better than all other men, as much as gold is better than iron, or garlic is better than other plants, or a stag is better than other animals, until my brothers became jealous of this man who was better than all others, and they could not sleep until they had killed him. Grani neighed loudly when he saw his lord injured, and I spoke to him as I would have to a man, when he bowed his head over the earth and knew that Sigurd was fallen. Then Gudrun went away into the woods. Everywhere she went, she heard the howling of wolves, and she thought she would be happier if she died. She wandered until she came to the hall of King Holv, and there she stayed with Thora, daughter of Håkon in Denmark, for 3.5 years. She was made welcome there with great joy, and she made a tall tapestry, and on it she wove scenes of many great deeds and great contests, which were talked about in her time, and of swords and armor and other kingly things, and the ships of King Sigmund as they departed from shore, and how Siggeir and Sigar fought on the island of Fyn. The women found their joy in such things, and for a while, Gudrun found a little comfort in her misery. Grimhild learned where Gudrun was, and she summoned her sons, asking which one of them would go to Gudrun and offer to compensate her for the murder of her husband and son, which she said they owed her. Gunnar said that he would be happy to offer Gudrun gold to repay her for her agony, and he sent for his friends. They prepared their horses, helmets, shields, swords, and coats of chainmail, and every other sort of war gear. And this expedition was prepared in the noblest fashion, and no great champion sat at home. Their horses were given chainmail to wear, and every rider had either a gilded shield or one that had been polished until it reflected like glass. Grimhild herself went on that journey with them, and said that their errand wouldn't be completed unless she went along. Altogether they were 600 riders, and they had many excellent men with them. Valdar the Dane went with them, as did Oimoth and Jaritslev. They went into the hall of King Holv, where there were men of the Longobards and of the Saxons and Franks. They went in full armor, and they wore red cloaks, as the poem says. They had tailored shirts of chainmail. They had pointed helmets. They had swords at their belts, and their hair was chestnut. They wanted to give their sister good gifts, and they spoke kindly to her, but she trusted none of them. Then Grimhild gave Gudrun a cursed drink, and she was forced to accept it, and afterwards she remembered none of their crimes. This drink had been mixed with the might of the earth and the sea, and the blood of Grimhild's own son, and the drinking horn itself was carved with every kind of rune, and painted with blood, as it is told. There were all sorts of runes in that horn, carved there and bloodied. I couldn't read them. There was a
No, no. Well, I'm in the mission right now, so probably not too long. Yeah. There's at least 2 minutes, bro. Yeah.
long sea serpent carved on the horn. There was an ear of wheat. There were animal guts. Many evil things were mixed into that beer, the blood of all beasts, and burned acorns, and eagle's blood, and intestines, and boiled pig's liver, all because she wanted to make me forget. And after this, when they had forced her to agree with them, there was great rejoicing. Then Grimhild met with Gudrun and said, "Be well, my daughter. I'll bring you gold and every kind of treasure to inherit from your father, and precious rings, and bed drapings in the style the noblest Hunnish girls use, and then you'll be paid back for your husband's death. And then you will be married to the powerful King Atli, and you'll have his wealth. Don't forsake your family for the sake of one man. Do as we ask instead." Gudrun said, "I never want to marry King Atli. It would not suit us to produce children." Grimhild said, "Don't turn your thoughts to blame. It will be as if Sigurd and Sigmund never died, if you have sons with King Atli." Gudrun said, "I can't stop thinking about him. Sigurd was better than all other men. Grimhild said, "You are ordered to marry this king, or you will be without a husband." Gudrun said, "Don't offer me to this king. Only evil will come from his family, and he will do evil things to your sons, and it will be avenged on him cruelly." Grimhild was upset when Gudrun mentioned misfortune befalling her sons, and she said, "Do as I order, and you will receive great fame in my friendship, and the lands called Vinbjorg and Valbjorg." Grimhild's words were so powerful that it had to be done. Gudrun said, "It has to be done, though I am not willing, and this will cause more agony rather than joy." Then the men mounted up on their horses and put the women in the wagons. They traveled 7 days by land, 7 days by sea, and then another 7 by land, until they came to a high hall. A great crowd was there to greet her, and a wonderful feast was prepared as agreed to before, and everything was done with great honor and ceremony. And at this feast, King Atli was married to Gudrun. But her heart never smiled upon him, and their days together had little joy.
Welcome back. Oh, I'm missing one more sniper then. I got you. Here we go, boys. Potentially, yeah. I think it is. Come on. Oh, crazy. I mean, I've obviously seen like what it looks like and stuff, but I haven't seen what it can do. Well, hang on. There's no point in me doing this just yet. Yeah. Right, anyway. Gotta love a 400 bullet SMG, you know? So good. Yeah, yeah. Wait, it doesn't actually have a suppressor. Wait, does it? I don't know. I don't know what the fuck this is that I've got on it. Destroy the helicopter. I mean, I've got a ray gun. Oi! Bro, you gotta lead. Okay. Wait, it might be able to do shit now. Yeah, there we go. What the fuck? That's how it makes an entrance? Wow, okay. Yo, this gun is fucking awesome. What the fuck? Ah, this is pretty fucking cool. Holy shit. Oh my god. Fuck me. Oh, I need ammo refill, thank you. Oh, they gave me teammates because they think I'm not good enough to do it by myself. That's cool. I have no idea. Holy shit! That's what I'm saying, man. Uh-oh. Oh, I gotta shoot the fucking glowing shit. Does more damage on the glowing shit. Okay. Bro, what am I getting hit by now? Oi. What the fuck? Flying little shit. Oh, the fucking orbs attacking me? Dude, fuck off. Little flying fuckbag. Okay. Bro. Uh, could do with some, do some ammo. Uh, there we go. Back again! Wankers. Uh-oh. Oh, not again. Wait, oh, I can fully do some big damage here, boys. Oh, I'm doing some big damage. Okay. Yeah, I'm finished it, but the orbs are after me. Let's go! That's awesome. Easy, dude. That's cool as fuck, man. Neil, thanks for the hydrate, bro. What's happening to Jansen? Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome in. That was a screech and a half, though. Fuck me. She might be. Oh, it looks like it. Yeah. Maybe? I don't know. I never paid attention to that kind of thing. It is soap, yeah. All right. GG's, boys. Yeah, now we wait for Act 4. And now we got the Bone Collector Operator skin. All right. Yeah, I mean that's the story done. Now I get to just fucking absolutely get a bunch of good shit for my stash, bro. Get a bunch of shit for my stash and then go from there. Nah, not today. Not today. No, we are gonna grind this for now. Oh damn. You doing the camo grind? Not yet. I'm gonna just try and get a bunch of shit in this that's like gold. Probably just have gold shit. Jug and speed perks, and that's it, pretty much. Yeah, it's not bad at all, man. We can go in with this. Oh. Thank you. Second. Brilliant. Thanks, man. I don't really know. I could. The thing is, like, there's been a bunch of people who've already done it, right? I don't really think I care too much. Maybe. Let's go. Let's go. True gamer, dude.
There was like some IRL streaming was really popping off at one stage, like super, super, super popping off. And it's like it's some good shit. Like pretty much if
All right, chat. Now we just do fucking contracts.
pretty clean, pretty simple, not too bad.
I do more contracts.
You can mount like your phone if you did want
I
to
do more contracts.
more specifically that way, and it just runs
I
all
do
day,
more contracts.
every fucking day. Very, very cool. But if for a setup like this,
What the fuck is this?
you doing IRL streaming,
thought it might have been
this is like your full-time fucking gig. This isn't like, oh,
No.
I'm gonna buy
Hi,
this and I'm
Mimic.
gonna go ahead and you know, do one IRL stream.
No, it's not Mimic. It's the yeah, I gotta kill, yeah. What the fuck? Already have that. We'll steal that and steal that.
Ooh. Someone got crabbed.
Crazy how the Raygun cooldown is 48 hours. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Oh, hey.
But I kind of get why they did it as well, so. We'll go straight to this objective.
Of course.
Tier 3 weapon.
Why is everyone sniping?
Well, actually, do we even want a tier 3 weapon?
I've got the Samsung 990.
Oh, I fucked up. I actually think we just grind juggernauts, to be honest. Damn. Okay. Bro, I don't even want to bother with that shit. Bro, that was terrible. Oh, hold on. It's a free what, like 2,000 points or some shit? I'm being 500 right there. Wow, these dogs are pretty fucking brutal, though. Oh boy. Is there ammo over here as well? No. Oh, there is. Pretty fucking good, I'll be honest. Yeah, I didn't really want to do that, but that's okay. Hopefully it'll be an abomination. But we'll see. Wow. Oh boy. It's only a disciple as well, man. Oh, that's so disappointing. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure you need to buy a new one. Oh yeah, you can like have it here as a score streak and bring it into your next game. Yeah, if that's what you're on about. My bad. A decent war weapon there as well for 5k. I'll do like 2 more after this one. If I don't get at least something purple that isn't a perk, or like just a regular papstone. So I'm expecting at least ether tool or like something gold. This is pretty shit right now, I'll be honest. Oh boy. Oh, well, that's gone to shit, hasn't it? Thanks for the follow. I appreciate it. Etherness? Nope. Wait. Oh, do you mean like the... Wait, do you mean like the infested stronghold stuff? I had to do one for the tier 3 mission. I had a Reagan tier 3 pap though. So it was alright. Okay. Oh yeah, nice. Is that a zipline? Oh, it fully was as well. Alright, we do have a Mega Abomination here. That's really good. We might actually get some decent shit from this. Gotta focus it. Come on. There you go. There you go. Dude, look at dude. The other shit you get is so ass, man. Hey, Nelson. You missed the worm boss, bro? Can I? Oh, there's the ladder. Nice, nice, nice. Was it good? Hard? It was all right, man. I gotta be honest. It wasn't bad at all. I'm just trying to get a shit ton of jobs now. Keyword there being trying to. I got one golden thing so far. Nice. Yeah, you're gonna be watching me basically do the same missions over and over again, I'll be honest with you. Yeah. This shit's been really bad. Like, the loot's been really ass here. Yeah. Enjoy, bro.
we were homies right from the start, losing everyone around me. I don't even know myself anymore. Never mind anyone. I thought we were homies right from the start, losing everyone around me. Everyone around me. Everyone, everyone,
Hello. Didn't really go too well last game, but
I'll probably leave you, but
you've been lurking since before the worm, and your loot look is making me sad, dude. I just don't know. Is it something I'm doing? Like, am I meant to try and get like a tier 3 papped weapon before I do these missions to try and get better loot, or is it literally just RNG? Is it just fully RNG and I'm getting shafted? And I don't know which one of those it is. Getting a what, sorry? A watch streak. Oh. Oh yeah, the funny thing. Let's go. I didn't do anything. I'm guessing it's Twitch just testing shit out. You know how it goes. You're in, and then around, and under. But actually, I think what we'll do is we'll just do like one tier 1 mission, and then a tier 2. Then go and do tier 2s. 3 schematics from tier 1. Yeah, I've gotten something similar in the past as well. No difference. There is a difference. You make more points in the higher tier zones. So tier 1 you get 2,000 per contract, tier 2 you get 3,000, and tier 3 you get 5,000. So you get more points. The loot should also be better in the higher tier zones. Yeah. Oh, this one's the shit one, isn't it? It'd be interesting to see if killing a certain amount of zombies has an impact on the rarity of your of the stuff you get from shit. Then again, that one I just did, I got fucking 2 self revives from it. Like, they finally changed it. No, it's not that they changed it; it's the fact that it was bugged, right? So and it still is bugged. It's a visual bug. No, it's not time that influences the loot. Definitely not. So I was getting fuck all, man. Bearing in mind, this is when the fucking storm was closing in. Like we can think it all we like, but it genuinely might just be RNG.
I spent $7,500 on a woolly mammoth tusk that I'm going to restore and put in our house. However, my wife was not thrilled about this, so to ease her into it, I'm going to build a fake tusk that looks really crappy, and when she sees the real one, she'll be thrilled. Theoretically.
Alright. Ready for your dream fossil?
I'm sorry.
Do you love it?
That's a word for
Spin the
it.
box, and at the end, every gun. Yeah, the guns from the box will be
time.
legendary, depending on time. I can agree with
That
that.
is not.
Yeah, go enjoy Paladins or whatever the fuck you're gonna do. Oh, yeah. See you in a bit, bro.
A tusk of any kind. This Sharpie and spray paint.
I thought that would turn out better.
So you didn't spend $7,000 on a tusk? Because that would be amazing.
I have another surprise for you. This is your real dream fossil.
Okay, so you did spend money on
I
this.
did spend money.
I spent $7,500 on a woolly mammoth tusk that I'm going to
I was in the garage yesterday.
The chalk that Jim has used comes in block.
Chapter 33. Atli sends an invitation to the sons of Gyuki. Compare Gudrun Arkvitha 2, stanzas 1 to 36, and Atlakvitha, stanzas 1 to 9, in the Poetic Edda. Now it is told that one night King Atli woke from his sleep. He said to Gudrun, "I dreamed that you stabbed me through with a sword." Gudrun interpreted this dream. She said that dreaming about iron was an omen of fire, and also a sign of the arrogance of considering yourself higher than all others. Atli said, "I went on to dream that 2 reeds had grown here, and I never wanted to cut them. But then they were severed from their roots and reddened in blood, and they were brought to my table and offered to me for food. Then I dreamed that 2 hawks flew from my hand, but they flew unluckily, and they went to hell. I dreamed that their hearts were served mixed with honey, and I ate them. Then I dreamed that 2 handsome puppies lay at my feet and barked, but then I ate their raw flesh against my own will. Gudrun said, "Your dreams are not good, but these things will come to pass. Your sons are doomed, and many terrible things will happen to us." I dreamed further, said Atli, that I lay in my own bed and I was killed. Time passed, and the two said little to one another. And Atli began to wonder what had become of the great treasure that Sigurd had owned, and King Gunnar and his brother Hogni now had. Atli was a great, powerful king, wise and with a large following, and he talked with his men about how to proceed. He knew that Gunnar and Hogni had much more wealth than any other men could compete with, and he decided to send messengers to seek those brothers and invite them to a feast with offers of many fine things. And the man who led these messengers was named Vingi. Queen Gudrun noticed their secret talks and suspected that a plot was being made against her brothers. She carved a message in runes, and she took a golden ring and tied a wolf's hair around it. She gave these things to the king's messengers, who afterwards left on their mission. And before they reached Gunnar's realm, Vingi noticed the runes, and he modified them to make it seem that Gudrun had said she was eager for her brothers to come. When the messengers came to the hall of King Gunnar, they were given a good welcome. Big fires were prepared for them, and they were given good drink to enjoy. Vingi said, "King Atli sent me here to ask that you visit him at his home and be welcomed there, and receive great honors from him, as well as helmets and shields, swords and coats of armor, gold and fine clothing, soldiers and horses, and vast lands to hold as his vassal. He thinks there is no one better to leave his kingdom to than you." Then Gunnar turned his head to Hogni and said, "How should we respond to this invitation? He's offering us great wealth, but I don't think any kings have as much gold as we do, because we have the whole treasure that was once at Ganitahe. We have large chambers full of gold, and the best swords and all kinds of armor. I know that my horse is the best and my sword is the sharpest, and this gold the finest." Hogni said, "I'm perplexed by his invitation, because it's something he has seldom done. I think it would be foolish to accept, and there's something else that gives me pause. In the jewels that King Atli sent us, I found a golden ring with a wolf's hair tied to it. Perhaps Gudrun thinks he has a wolf's heart toward us, and she doesn't want us to make the journey." Then Vingi showed him the message in runes that he said Gudrun had sent. Now most of the commoners went to sleep, but Gunnar and Hogni stayed up drinking with some men. Then Hogni's wife Kostbera, the most beautiful of women, went to look at the runes. The name of Gunnar's wife was Glaumvor, and she was a very capable and talented woman. It was the brothers' wives who were serving the drinks, and both King Gunnar and Hogni became very drunk. Vingi did not fail to notice this, and he said, "I won't lie to you. King Atli is very old and having trouble defending his kingdom, and his sons are young and incapable. Now he means to give you his kingdom while they are still young, and he would like it best if it was you who had it. Now, because he was very drunk, and because he was offered a great kingdom, and moreover because no one can fight fate, Gunnar promised to go to King Atli, and he told his brother Hogni. Hogni said, "Your decision must stand, and I will follow you, though I do not go eagerly." Chapter 34, Concerning the Dreams of Kostbera. And when the men had drunk as much as they wished, they went to sleep. Kostbera, Hogni's wife, looked at the runes and read them. She saw that something different was written underneath, and that the letters looked haphazardly written. She was wise enough to read it, though, and afterwards she went to bed with her husband. And when they woke, she said to Hogni, "The journey you are planning away from home is unwise. Go another time if you have to. You aren't reading clearly if you think it's your sister who invited you this time." I read her message in runes, and I was perplexed that such a wise woman would have written so poorly. But what I read underneath those runes spelled your death. I can see that she either missed a letter, or that others changed what she wrote. And now listen to my dream. I dreamed that a river crashed into the hall, and it was very strong and it broke the pillars. He said, "You often feel suspicious, but I don't have the personality to think badly of other men unless they prove otherwise to me. He'll greet us gladly." She said, "You'll test that, but his friendship will not follow his invitation." And I had another dream, and in that one another river crashed into the hall and made a loud noise, and broke up all the floorboards in the hall. And it broke your feet and Gunnar's too, and this must mean something. He said, "There will be fields where you saw our river, and when we walk in the fields, big barbs will often stick to our feet." I dreamed, she said, that your sheets were burning, and that the flames leapt high from our hall. He said, "I know exactly what that means. Our clothes are in disorderly piles, and they will burn, even though you think you saw sheets. I dreamed that a bear came inside, she said, and the bear destroyed Gunnar's throne, and it struck out with its paws, and we were all afraid. And then it took all of us in its mouth, and we were paralyzed, and the horror was terrible. He said, there will be a great storm when you dream about a polar bear. I dreamed that an eagle came inside, she said, and he flew the length of the hall and drenched me, and everybody else all in blood, and that must mean evil is coming, because I thought the eagle was the spirit of King Atli. He said, we often kill and butcher big steers for our meals, and when you dream about an eagle, it's a symbol for a steer, and Atli will be faithful to us. And with this, their conversation ended. Chapter 35. Gunnar and Hogni visit Atli. Compare Atlakvida, stanzas 10 to 13, in the Poetic Edda. Now it is told that much the same happened when Gunnar awoke. His wife Glaumvor told him many of her dreams and said she thought it was likely that Atli would betray them. But Gunnar interpreted all of her dreams the opposite way. This was one of them, she said. I dreamed that a bloody sword was brought into the hall, and you were stabbed through with it, and wolves howled on either side of the sword. King Gunnar said, some small dogs will want to bite me. Barking dogs are often what dreams about bloody swords mean. She said, I had another dream. Some women came in, and they were sad, and they wanted to marry you. It may be that these were your family's spirits. He said, it's not easy to interpret this dream correctly, but no one can postpone his death day, and it's not unlikely that I have only a short time left. And in the morning they woke up and wanted to go, though others tried to hold them back. Then Gunnar said to a man named Fjornir, get up and give us good wine to drink from our big cups, because it may be that this will be our last feast, and the wolf will take over our gold if we die, and the bear will fight him for it with snapping jaws. Then the troops mustered, and the women wept. One of Hogni's sons said, farewell, and good luck. They left the bigger part of their army behind. Solak and Snavar, sons of Hogni, came with them, and so did a great champion named Orkney, brother of Hogni's wife, Kostbera. Many people followed them to their ships, and tried to talk them out of the journey, but to no avail. Then Gunnar's wife Glaumvor said, Vingi, it is likely that bad luck will be the result of your errand. Important events await on your journey. He answered, I swear that I am not lying, and may a high rope hang me and demons too, if one word was a lie. And he wasn't ashamed to speak in such terms. Kostbera said, farewell, and good luck. And Hogni answered to the women, be cheerful, whatever happens to me. Now husbands and wives were parted, and with them their fates. The men rowed with such strength and strain that their ship's keel was half submerged. They rowed hard with their oars so that they broke top and bottom, and when finally they came to land, they did not anchor their ships. Now they rode their excellent horses through the dark forest a while, until they saw King Atli's home. They heard a great noise and the clashing of weapons from there, and they saw a big crowd of men and the preparations they were busy making. The whole town wall was full of men. They rode up to the wall, and it was locked. But Hogni broke down the gate, and in they rode. Then Vingi said, it would be better if you hadn't done that. Wait here while I find a hanging tree for you. I invited you here pleasantly enough, but there was deception underneath. Now it won't be long before you're both hanged. Hogni said, we're not going to give in to you easily, and I don't think we're likely to be scared when the fighting starts. It's no good to try to scare us. We'll pay it all back to you ferociously. Gunnar and Hogni kicked Vingi down and beat him to death with their axe handles. Chapter 36. Concerning the Battle. Compare Atlakvida, stanzas 14 to 17, in the Poetic Edda. Now they rode to the king's hall. King Atli had prepared his army for battle, and the troops were standing on either end of a large yard. Be welcome here with us, said King Atli, and give me the golden treasure that is my proper inheritance, the money that was Sigurd's, and now belongs to Gudrun. Gunnar said, you'll never get that treasure, and you have good warriors to face before you'll see us dead, if you propose to fight us. It may be that you've indeed set a fine table, but that you've set it for the eagles and the wolves, and you'll be a generous host. I have been plotting for a long time, said Atli, to kill the two of you, and to have all the gold for my own and pay you back for the cowardly work you did when you killed your heroic brother-in-law, and I mean to avenge him. Hogni said, it will be worse for you the longer you think about it. You're not ready for us. And now a hard battle started, and to begin with it was an archer's battle. The news reached Gudrun And when she heard about the battle, she stood up, strode forward, and threw off her cloak. She went out and greeted the guests, kissing her brothers and showing them her love, and this was their last greeting. She said, "I thought I'd seen to it that you wouldn't come, but no one can fight fate." Then she asked, would it do any good to propose a peaceful settlement? All the men rejected this immediately, and when Gudrun saw that her brothers were the victims of foul play, her heart hardened, and she put on a chainmail shirt and took up a sword, and fought alongside her brothers, and fought as hard as the fiercest man, and everyone agrees that there could hardly be a tougher defensive action than they fought there. There was a tremendous loss of life, and no one fought harder than Gunnar and Hogni. The battle lasted a long time, all the way through midday. Gunnar and Hogni pushed through the ranks of King Atli's soldiers, and it is said that the valley was drowning in blood. Hogni's sons also fought their way forward hard. Then King Atli said, "I have a big army of free men and great champions, but now many have died, and I have much to repay you for killing 19 of my champions. I have only 11 left." Now there was a pause in the battle. King Atli said, "I was one of 4 brothers, and I am the only survivor. But I married well, and I thought this would increase my fame. I had a beautiful and wise wife, fire-spirited and hard-hearted, but I could barely enjoy her wisdom because we were seldom at peace. Now you have killed many of my kinsmen, and robbed me of my kingdom and treasure, and betrayed my sister, and that is the worst of my sufferings." Hogni said, "Why do you talk like this? You broke the peace first. You took a kinswoman of mine and murdered her by starving her to death. Then you took her wealth, and that was hardly kingly behavior. I think it's laughable to hear you airing your grievances, and I will thank the gods for whatever bad things befall you." Chapter 37. The Death of Gunnar and Hogni. Compare Atlakvida, stanzas 18 to 33, in the Poetic Edda. Now King Atli urged his men forward into a forceful charge, and the fighting was fierce. Gunnar and Hogni attacked so hard that King Atli was forced back into his hall, and the fighting continued inside and became extremely violent. The battle caused huge loss of life, and it ended with the death of Gunnar and Hogni's entire army, so that the two of them were fighting alone, and many men went to hell who were sent there by their weapons. Now King Atli's men set upon King Gunnar, and because of their massive advantage in numbers, they were able to capture him and put him in chains. Then Hogni kept fighting with great energy and reckless courage, and he killed 20 of King Atli's best champions. He shoved many of them into the fire that blazed in the middle of the hall. They all agreed that they had never before seen such a man. But in the end, he was overwhelmed by their numbers and put in chains. King Atli said, "It is a great wonder how many men Hogni has killed. Now cut out his heart, and let that be his end." Hogni said, "Do as you like. I'll await it cheerfully, whatever you decide to do, and you'll know that my heart isn't afraid. I've endured hard things before, and I was always eager to prove my manliness before I was injured. But now I have multiple wounds, and you alone can decide what will happen to me." But one of King Atli's advisors said, "I have a better plan. Let us take the slave Hjalli rather than Hogni. He's a slave made for dying, and he could never live long enough to be anything but bad anyway." The slave heard and shouted and tried to run away to where he thought he could hide himself. He said he did not deserve this kind of rough treatment, and that he was being badly repaid for his hard work. He said it was an evil day if he was going to die and be deprived of his comfortable living and his pig farming. But they caught him and put the knife to him, and he screamed very high before he felt the knife blade. Then Hogni spoke up, as few men would have the courage to do in such a place. He told them to let the slave live, and that he didn't want to hear the man's screams, and that he himself would have an easier time taking this punishment. The slave was overjoyed, and his life was spared. Now both Gunnar and Hogni were put in chains, and King Atli told King Gunnar that he would have to tell him where the gold was if he wanted to live. Gunnar said, "First I must see the bloody heart of my brother Hogni." Now they took the slave in hand a second time. They cut out his heart and brought it before King Gunnar. Gunnar said, "This is the heart of the coward Hjalli. It is nothing like my bold brother Hogni's heart, because it's trembling, and it trembled twice as much in the coward's chest." Now on the orders of King Atli, they went again to Hogni and cut his heart out. And Hogni's manliness was so great that he laughed while he was put through this torture, and they were all amazed at his fearlessness, and it has been long remembered. They showed Hogni's heart to Gunnar. Gunnar said, "Here you can see the heart of my bold brother Hogni. It is nothing like the coward Hjalli's heart, because it moves little now, and it moved even less in the brave man's chest. And now, Atli, you will lose your life, and I will lose mine. Now I am the only one who knows where the gold is, and Hogni can no longer tell you. I was always in doubt while the two of us lived. But now I am certain the secret is safe with me alone. Let the river Rhine have the treasure, and let the Huns never wear it. King Atli said, "Take the prisoner away," and this was done. Gudrun summoned her servants and went to Atli and said, "Let your fate treat you as badly as you have treated your promises to me and Gunnar." King Gunnar was put into a snake pit. There were many snakes inside, and his hands were tied together tight. Gudrun threw a harp to him, and he showed his skill and played the harp with great talent, plucking the strings with his toes. He played so well and skillfully that few thought they had heard playing as good, even when they had heard the harp played with the hands. And Gunnar played so well and long that the vipers all fell asleep, except for one big, cruel snake that slithered up to him and dug in with its fangs and pierced all the way to his heart. And in this way, Gunnar died while showing great courage. Chapter 38. Gudrun's Revenge. Compare Atlakvida, stanzas 34 to 45 in the Poetic Edda. Now King Atli believed he had won a great victory, and he told Gudrun this mockingly and with a cruel voice. He said, "Gudrun, you have lost your brothers, and the fault is your own." She said, "You're feeling satisfied now when you declare these murders in my presence, but it may be that you'll regret it when you experience what's coming. The life that is left to you won't ever lose its bleakness, and things won't go well for you while I live." He said, "We ought to make a settlement between us. I'd like to repay you for your brothers with whatever gold and precious jewels you like." She said, "For a long time I've been hard for you to live with, although it might have been otherwise if you had let even just Hogni live. But now you will never be able to repay me for their lives in a way I will accept. Women are often overpowered by men's violence, and now all my kin are dead, and I have you alone to obey. I will choose this. Let us have a great feast prepared, and I will do honor to the passing of my brothers and to your own kinsmen." She spoke pleasantly, but underneath her words she was unchanged. Atli was easily persuaded, and he believed what she said when she acted as if her heart had softened. Gudrun held the funeral feast for her brothers, and King Atli for his men, and it was a lively feast. Now Gudrun thought of her miseries and how she might inflict some great humiliation on Atli. During the evening she took her and King Atli's sons up from where they were playing by a wall. The boys were sullen and asked what they had to do. She said, "Don't ask. You are both going to die." They said, "You can do what you want with your own children, and no one will forbid it, but there is shame for you in doing this." Then she cut their heads off. The king asked later where his sons were. Gudrun said, "I'll tell you, and it will cheer your heart. You gave me untold misery when you killed my brothers. Now hear what I have to say. Your sons are lost to you, and these are their skulls here for drinking cups, and you've drunk their blood mixed with wine. I took their hearts and cooked them on a spit, and you ate them." King Atli said, "You're a cruel woman who has murdered her own sons and given me their flesh to eat, and you don't let much time pass between bad deeds." Gudrun said, "My great wish is to hurt you awfully. I'll never be able to fully repay all the cruel deeds of such an evil king as you." Atli said, "You've done worse things than anyone has ever heard of. It's foolish to do such hard-hearted things, and it would be proper if you were burned on a funeral pyre after being stoned to death. Then you'd have what you've deserved." She said, "You make this prophecy, but my fate is a different death." And they said many other hateful things to each other. Hogni had a surviving son who was named Nivlung. He hated Atli, and he told Gudrun that he wanted to avenge his father. She took this well, and they conspired together. Gudrun told him there would be great luck in avenging his father if he could accomplish it. And during the evening, after King Atli had been drinking, he fell asleep. Once he was sleeping, Gudrun and Nivlung came, and Gudrun took up a sword and stabbed Atli in the chest. This was the plan she had made with Nivlung. King Atli woke up when he felt the strike and said, "There won't be any need to bandage or doctor this injury. But who are you who killed me?" Gudrun said, "The blame is partly on me, and partly on Hogni's son." Atli said, "This was not an honorable deed, even if there was some cause for it. You were married to me with your family's blessing, and I paid the price they set for you, 30 good knights and good young women, and many other followers besides. But you could not abide it unless you controlled all the lands that belonged to my father King Budli, and you have often left your mother-in-law in tears." Gudrun said, "You've told lie after lie. I don't care. I was often hard to get along with, and you made it worse. There has often been strife in your home, and your kinsmen and friends have often fought one another, and each started feuds with another. My life was better when I was with Sigurd. We would kill kings and take their wealth, and we gave peace to those who wanted it, and great chieftains came and submitted to us, and we let them keep their realms if they wished. But then I lost him. I could have endured staying a widow, but not being married to you, a man who has never been on the better side of any battle, not when I had been married to the best king. King Otley said, "That is not true, but this argument won't make you or me happier, and I am already defeated. Now do me some honor, and let my funeral be prepared nobly." She said, "I will let you have an honorable burial, and I will order a worthy stone coffin built for you. I will weave handsome cloths to wrap your body in, and I will attend to every other need." After this he died, and Gudrun did as she had promised. And afterward she burned his hall down, and when his hand-picked men woke up in the hour before dawn, they did not want to burn, and they killed each other with their weapons instead. And in this way the life of King Otley and every one of his best men was ended. Gudrun did not wish to live after this, but her death day had not yet come, and now the hostilities ended in this way, for a while. It is said that the Volsungs and the children of Giuki were the proudest and noblest people who have been told of in the ancient poems. Chapter 39. The Marriage of King Jonaker to Gudrun. Compare the prose introduction to Gudrun or what and the poetic Edda. Gudrun had a daughter with Sigurd named Svanhild. She was the most beautiful of all women, and she had fierce eyes like her father's, so that few dared to look her in the eye. She was more beautiful than other women, just as the sun is brighter than all other lights in the sky. Gudrun went to the sea one day and put her arms around a large stone and then threw herself to the ocean. She wanted to die, but the waves took her up, and she floated to the town of King Jonaker. He was a powerful king with a large following. He married Gudrun, and they had 3 sons, Hamdir, Sorli, and Erp. Svanhild was brought up there as well. Chapter 40. Concerning Jormunrek and Svanhild. Compare the prose introduction to Gudrun Arhwat and the poetic Edda. A king was named Jormunrek, a very powerful king in his time. His son was named Ranver. The king came to talk with his son and said, "You will go on an errand for me to King Jonaker, together with my counselor Biki. There is a girl named Svanhild in King Jonaker's land. She is the daughter of Sigurd, the killer of Fofnir, and she is the most beautiful woman under the sun. I want her in preference to anyone else, and you are going to propose that she be married to me." Ranver said, "It is my duty, my lord, to go on your errand." He had the expedition prepared splendidly, and they traveled until they came to King Jonaker's home, where they saw Svanhild, and they thought that her beauty was remarkable. Ranver sought an audience with King Jonaker and said, "King Jormunrek wants to propose marriage to your stepdaughter. He has heard of Svanhild and he wants her for his wife, and it would be impossible to marry her to a more powerful man than he is." The king said that this was a good idea, and that Jormunrek was very famous. Gudrun said, "It's foolish to trust that a streak of good luck won't break." But with the encouragement of King Jormunrek, and because of every argument that was brought to bear in favor of the marriage, it was agreed, and Svanhild went to Ranver's ship with a worthy following and sat in the stern with Ranver. Then Biki said to Ranver, "It would be more fitting for you and not the old man to have such a beautiful woman." This agreed well with Ranver's feelings, and he went and spoke to her pleasantly, and she to him. Later they came home and met the king. Biki said, "It is fitting, lord, for you to know what has happened, though it is painful to say it. The news is that you have been betrayed, and your son has enjoyed Svanhild's love in every way. She is his concubine, and you should not let such things go unpunished." Biki had often given evil counsel before, though this did worse evil than anything else he had ever done. The king listened to his many evil words, and then he said, while he was unable to control himself in his rage, that Ranver should be taken and hanged. And when Ranver had been led to the hanging tree, he took a hawk in his hand and plucked off all its feathers and said that it ought to be shown to his father. And when the king saw this, he said, "Now I see that he thinks I've been stripped of honor, like this hawk has been stripped of feathers." And he ordered him taken down from the hanging tree. But Biki had done his deceitful work, and Jormunrek's son was already dead. Now Biki said, "You have no one to repay worse than Svanhild. Let her die with shame." King Jormunrek said, "That is advice I will take." And she was tied up by the town gate, and horses were let loose to trample her. But when she stared at the horses, they didn't dare come near her. Biki saw this and said that a bag should be put over her head, and this was done, and then she was killed. Chapter 41. Gudrun urges her sons to take vengeance. Compare Gudrun Arhwat, and Hamdismal stanzas 1 to 10, in the Poetic Edda. Gudrun learned about the death of Svanhild and told her sons, "Why do you sit here so quietly, speaking pleasantly? when Jormunrek has killed your sister and trampled her under horses' hooves with shame. You two have hearts nothing like Gunnar and Hogni's. They would have avenged their kinswoman. Hamdir said, You didn't have much good to say about Gunnar and Hogni when they killed Sigurd and made you red with his blood. And you avenged your brothers evilly when you killed your own sons, and it would be better if all of us were alive to go and kill King Jormunrek together. But we won't stand idly by for these mocking words, not when you push us so hard. Gudrun laughed and gave them big cups to drink from, and afterwards she chose massive, well-made shirts of chainmail for them to wear, and other clothes of war. Then Hamdir said, This will be our last parting, and you'll hear the news of it. You'll drink the funeral toast for Svanhild, and for the two of us too. And then they left. Gudrun went to her room more miserable than ever and said, I was married to 3 men. First to Sigurd, killer of Wolfnir. He was betrayed, and that was my greatest misery. Then I was married to King Atli, and my heart hated him so much that I killed my own sons in my grief. Then I went to the sea, and the waves threw me back on land, and I was given to this king. Then I married Svanhild off with great wealth, and the worst of my miseries after Sigurd's death is that she was trampled under the hooves of horses. But the cruelest of my miseries is that Gunnar was thrown in the snake pit, and the hardest is that Hogni's heart was cut out. It would be better if Sigurd would come to me and I could go away with him. Now I sit with no sons or daughters to comfort me. Sigurd, do you remember what we said when we first stepped together into one bed? That either you would come back to me from hell or wait for me there? And this was the last of what Gudrun had to say about her torments. Chapter 42. The Murder of Erp and the Fall of Sorli and Hamdir. Compare Hamdismal, stanzas 11 to 31, in the Poetic Edda. Now it is told that Gudrun had enchanted the armor of her sons, so that iron could not pierce it, and she told them not to injure any stones or other big things, and that if they did, they would no longer be shielded from all harm. And when they had started on their way, they met their brother Erp, and they asked him what help he would give them. He said, I will help you like hand helps hand, or foot helps foot. They thought he meant no help at all, and they killed him. Then they rode along further, and a little later Hamdir tripped and caught himself with his hand and said, Erp must have been speaking faithfully. I would have fallen just now if I hadn't caught myself with my hand. And a little later, Sorli also tripped. He recovered himself with his foot and steadied himself. He said, I would have fallen if I hadn't caught myself with both feet. Now they said that they had done an evil thing to their brother Erp. They went on to the realm of King Jormunrek, and they went before him and attacked him. Hamdir cut off both his hands, and Sorli both his feet. Then Hamdir said, His head would have come off too, if our brother Erp had lived, but we killed him on the road and we realized our error too late. As the poem says, Jormunrek would lose his head, if only Erp still lived, our bold brother, the one we killed on the road. And when they had done this, they had violated the command of their mother, because they had injured stone. Now Jormunrek's men attacked them, and they defended themselves well and boldly, and injured many men, and iron would not harm them. But then an old man came, very tall and with only one eye, and he said, You are not wise if you don't know how to kill these men. King Jormunrek said, Advise us if you know how. The man said, Kill them with stones. And this was done. Stones were thrown at them from every direction, and they were killed. The Saga of Ragnar Lothbrok. Ragnar Saga Lothbrokar. Chapter 1. Concerning Heimir and Oslaug. Now the news came to Heimir and Hlyndalir that Sigurd and Brynhild were dead. Their daughter Oslaug, who was Heimir's foster daughter, was 3 years old at the time, and Heimir knew that someone would search for her and try to kill her and wipe out her family line. And he mourned so much for the loss of Brynhild, his foster daughter, that he could not hold on to his kingdom or his wealth, and he knew that he could not hide the girl there. So he had a huge harp made, and he hid Oslaug inside of it together with many treasures of gold and silver. And then he wandered north through many lands, until he came here to Scandinavia. This harp was so skillfully made that he could take it apart and put it back together in sections. During the days when he walked near the wild waterfalls and was far from any farm, Heimir would take the harp apart and wash the girl. And he had a particular onion that he would give her to eat. And this onion had the power that a person could eat it and live, even if no other food was available. And when the girl cried, He would play the harp and then she would be quiet, because Hamir was skillful at all the arts that were popular in his time. He also kept many precious clothes in the harp with the girl, together with a great deal of gold. And now Hamir traveled until he came to Norway and entered a little farm there that was called Spangarheið. The man who lived there was named Aki, and his wife was named Grima, and there were no other people besides them there. On the day Hamir arrived, the husband had gone into the forest, but the old woman was at home. She greeted Hamir and asked what sort of man he might be. He said he was a beggar, and he asked the old woman to let him stay the night. She said not very many guests visited, but that she would be hospitable to him if he thought he needed to stay there. And Hamir said the best hospitality he could hope for in his journey would be if a fire could be started for him, and then if he could be led to the sleeping quarters, where he could spend the night. And when the old woman had gotten a fire started, Hamir stood the harp up next to where he sat. The woman spoke constantly, and her glance often turned toward the harp, because it happened that a piece of precious cloth hung out from inside it. And as Hamir was warming himself up at the fire, she saw a precious golden ring that appeared from underneath his tattered clothes, because he was poorly dressed. And when he had warmed himself and was comfortable, he ate dinner. And after this he asked the old woman to show him to the place where he could sleep for the night. Then the old woman said that it would be better for him to sleep outside than inside, because I'm often talkative with my husband when he comes home. Hamir said it was her decision to make, so he went outside with her. He took the harp and kept it with him. The old woman went out and led him to where there was a barn, and said that he could situate himself there, and that she thought he could enjoy a night's sleep there. And now the old woman left, and did the chores she needed to do, and Hamir went to sleep. Aki came home as the evening drew on, and found that his wife had done few of the chores she was supposed to do. He was angry when he came home, and he spoke to her roughly, because everything that he had told her to do was undone. He said that there was a lot of difference between how much he and she enjoyed their day, because he had to work more than he could every day, but she wouldn't do anything useful. "Don't be angry, husband," she said, "because maybe in a short time, you'll be able to do something that will make us happy for the rest of our lives." "What is that?" he asked. She said, "A man has come here to our home, and I think he's traveling with a great deal of money, and he's getting old. He probably once was a great champion, but now he is very tired. I don't think I've ever seen his equal, but I think he's worn out and sleeping." Then Aki said, "I don't think it's wise to betray the few people who ever come here." Grima said, "You will always be a man of little ambition, because everything seems to be a bigger thing in your eyes than it is. Well, either you will kill him, or I will marry him, and then he and I will kick you out of here. And I can tell you what he said to me last night, although you won't think well of it. He spoke seductively to me, and I think I'd like to have him for a husband, and drive you off or kill you, if you don't want to do what I want." And it is told that Aki was easily dominated by his wife, and she kept up her nagging until he gave in. And he took up his axe and sharpened it well. And when he was ready, the woman followed Aki to where Hamir was sleeping, and he was snoring loudly. Then Grima told Aki that he should attack him as hard as he could, and then run away quickly, because I doubt you can stand his shouting and screaming if he gets his hands on him. Then she grabbed the harp and ran away with it, and he stepped up to the spot where Hamir slept. He hit him hard with the axe, and it was a big wound, and the axe flew out of his hands. Then he ran away as fast as he could. Hamir woke up when he was attacked, and he felt that it was his death blow. And it is said that he made such a loud noise in his final agony that the pillars of the building collapsed, and then the whole building with them, and there was a great earthquake, and in this way his life came to an end. Now Aki came to where Grima was and told her that he had killed Hamir. But there was a while when I wasn't sure how it would go, because he was a very great man, but I think he is now in hell. Grima said that he deserved thanks for doing this. And I think we have plenty of money now, and will test whether what I said is true. So they started a fire, and Grima took the harp and wanted to take it apart, but she knew no other way than to break it because she did not have Hamir's skill. She broke it open, and she saw a very young girl inside of a sort she thought she had never seen, and there was also a large amount of treasure inside the harp with her. Aki said, "Now it's happened like it often does, that one is punished for betraying those who trust him. It looks like we have another mouth to feed on our hands." Grima said, "This is not what I expected, but it's not a bad surprise." She asked the girl what family she was from, but the girl said nothing, as if she had never learned to speak. "Now it's going as I expected, that our evil deed has brought us evil," said Aki. "We have committed a terrible crime, and what are we going to do with this child?" "That's simple," said Grima. "She'll be named Kroka, Crow, after my mother." Aki said again, "What are we going to do with her?" Grima said, "I have a good idea. We'll say she's our daughter and we'll raise her." "No one will believe it," said Aki. "This child is much better looking than we are, and we are both incredibly ugly. No one will think it's believable that we had a child who looks like this, considering how hideous we both are." Grima said, "You don't understand, but I have an idea for how to make it more believable. I'll shave her bald and then put tar and other things in her scalp to keep her hair from growing back, and she'll wear a long hood, and she'll never wear good clothes. Then our looks won't seem so different, and maybe people will think that I was much better looking in my youth. Plus, she'll do all the worst work." Grima and Aki thought the girl could not speak, since she never answered them, and they followed Grima's plan, and the girl grew up with them in abject poverty. Chapter 2. Concerning Thora, Town Doe. Heruth was the name of a great and powerful Jarl in Jötaland. He was married, and his daughter was named Thora. She was the most beautiful of all women to look at, and she was the noblest in every woman's skill that might come up, or that it might be better to be with than without. The nickname she was called by was Town Doe, because she exceeded other women in beauty, just as the doe exceeds all other animals. The Jarl loved his daughter dearly, and he made a little house for her near the king's hall, with a fence around it. It was the Jarl's custom to send his daughter something to play with every day, and he said that he intended to continue doing so. It is told that one day he had a small snake brought to her that was very pretty. She liked the snake, and let it sit in a small chest, and she put gold underneath it. It did not sit there long before it began to grow, and the gold grew that was under it. Finally, there was no more room for it in the chest, and the snake lay coiled in a ring around it. And later there wasn't even enough space for it in Thora's cabin, and the snake kept growing and so did the gold. Now it lay outside and encircled the cabin so that its head touched its tail. And it did not like to be approached, and no one dared to come near the cabin because of this dragon, except the man assigned to feed it, and the dragon required a whole steer for every meal. The Jarl thought this dragon was a curse, and he swore that he would marry his daughter to whatever man could kill it, no matter what family he was from, and also give him the gold that lay beneath the dragon as a... Chapter 2. Concerning Thora, Town Doe. Heruth was the name of a great and powerful Jarl in Jötaland. He was married, and his daughter was named Thora. She was the most beautiful of all women to look at, and she was the noblest in every woman's skill that might come up, or that it might be better to be with than without. The nickname she was called by was Town Doe, because she exceeded other women in beauty, just as the doe exceeds all other animals. The Jarl loved his daughter dearly, and he made a little house for her near the king's hall, with a fence around it. It was the Jarl's custom to send his daughter something to play with every day, and he said that he intended to continue doing so. It is told that one day he had a small snake brought to her that was very pretty. She liked the snake, and let it sit in a small chest, and she put gold underneath it. It did not sit there long before it began to grow, and the gold grew that was under it. Finally, there was no more room for it in the chest, and the snake lay coiled in a ring around it. And later there wasn't even enough space for it in Thora's cabin, and the snake kept growing and so did the gold. Now it lay outside and encircled the cabin so that its head touched its tail. And it did not like to be approached, and no one dared to come near the cabin because of this dragon, except the man assigned to feed it, and the dragon required a whole steer for every meal. The Jarl thought this dragon was a curse, and he swore that he would marry his daughter to whatever man could kill it, no matter what family he was from, and also give him the gold that lay beneath the dragon as a wedding gift. This news was spread widely around the land, although no one dared to kill the great dragon. Chapter 3. Ragnar kills the dragon. At that time, Sigurd the Ring ruled Denmark. He was a powerful king and had become famous after his battle against Harald Wartooth on Bråvalar, when he killed Harald, which has become known to everyone in the northern half of the world. Sigurd the Ring had a son named Ragnar. He was a big man, handsome and well provided with wisdom. He was good to his men and cruel to his enemies. As soon as he had grown old enough, he assembled an army and a fleet of ships and became the best kind of warrior, so that there were few who could equal him. Ragnar heard tell of what Jarl Heruth had said, but he paid it no attention and acted as if he had never heard it. But he ordered some clothes made for himself of a strange type, shaggy pants and a shaggy cloak, and when they were done, he ordered them boiled in pitch, and then he put them away. One summer, when Ragnar sailed with his army to Jötaland, he hid his ship in an inconspicuous spot in a fjord not far from where Jarl Herud ruled. And when Ragnar had been there one night, he woke up early in the morning, rose up, and put on the same clothes as have been previously described. He took up a great spear in his hand and left the ships on his own, and he went down to a sandy place and he rolled around in the sand. And before he continued, he took the nail out of his spear that held the shaft to the point, and now he went alone from his ships to the Jarl's residence, and came early in the day, when everyone was sleeping. Now Ragnar turned toward Thora's cabin, and when he came inside the fence where the dragon was, he stabbed his spear into the dragon and pulled the spear back, and then he stabbed at the dragon again. The spear pierced the dragon's back, and then Ragnar twisted the spear so swiftly that the spearhead came loose from the shaft. The dragon made so much noise as it died that the cabin shook all around. Now Ragnar went away. A splash of the dragon's blood hit him between the shoulders, but it did not harm him because the clothes he had made protected him. The people inside the cabin awoke from the noise and went outside. Thora saw a big man walking away and asked his name and where he was going. He stopped and spoke this poem. Beautiful woman, I have honorably risked my life 15 years old to fight the serpent. I would be dead from the snake's bite if my spear had not bitten the viper's heart sooner. Now he went away and said nothing more to her, but his spear point remained in the dragon's wound, though Ragnar took his spear shaft with him. When Thora heard his poem, she understood what he said about what he'd done and how old he was. She thought about who he might be, but she did not know whether he was even human or not, because it seemed to her that his size, for someone of his age, was like that of a monster. She returned to her room and went back to sleep. And when people came outside later in the morning, they saw that the dragon was dead, wounded by the big spear point that was still in the wound. The Jarl ordered the spear point taken out, and it was so large that it could not have served many men as a useful weapon. Now the Jarl thought about what he had said about the man who managed to kill the dragon, though he did not know whether this had been accomplished by a human man or not. He spoke with his friends and his daughter about how he should look for the man, and he thought it likely that this man would want the reward that had been promised. Thora suggested that a great meeting should be called, and declare this, that all men should come who are able and who don't want to face the Jarl's anger. And if the man who killed the dragon is one of them, he will probably have with him the spear shaft that fits the spear point. The Jarl thought this was a good idea, and he called together a meeting. And when the day came for the meeting, the Jarl and many other chieftains came, and there was a great crowd. Chapter 4.